Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Net Only. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click that like button, and please leave a comment. All of these things definitely help, and guys, they really do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's bonus upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. I live at my grandparents' house in the middle of nowhere. It's very rural, and my cousin and I keep experiencing weird things we feel may be related to a shapeshifter. Strange things have been happening, and there has always been an eerie feeling up here. To start, there is a motion sensor light by one of the sheds on the property that has been going off at night, late at night, without anything being there and weird noises. At first, we thought it was a coincidence, but then it kept happening, always around 11:30 at night. Again, another time, my cousin and I were sitting on a van, and we looked over, and my grandfather was looking at us. Just a dead-eyed stare. He didn't say anything, he just stared for about 45 seconds, which was unusual and out of character. Then, after he walked away, a few minutes later, we went to go inside, and we ran into him again. And he was walking out of the house and said, "I was just coming to find you guys," implying that he didn't see us, but he very clearly had seen us, and I waved at him, and he just walked away. My cousin has been seeing and hearing things that aren't there, and we just aren't sure if we are idiots or something does seem off. After making the stupid decision to sit in my grandfather's shop with my cousin, we wanted to watch from afar to see if the light would go on. After setting up, I noticed a large amount of owls that I was hearing, and that in this area, Idaho, the amount of owls I could hear was unnatural. Setting that aside, though, I looked at some different stuff on shapeshifters and discovered they commonly show up as fox, wolves, coyotes, crows, and owls. And we kept hearing a really weird barking noise that really didn't sound like a dog. My mom came out to check on us, and she stopped in her tracks because she had said she had heard something weird. My mom is not easily fazed, but she stopped dead where she was and shines her flashlight to where she thought she heard something. And my cousin and I just looked at each other because my mom wouldn't believe us if we told her what we thought was really going on. She ended up leaving, and we walked with her to the smaller shed room where some batteries are kept because we needed them, and my mom slowed down and ended up far behind us. We ended up in the shed, and we didn't see her, but we could hear her talking. And it was obvious that we weren't there because she would have seen us. We freaked out, but continued looking for the batteries. I watched my mom go to the door and open the screen, but I had closed the shed door before I saw her actually go into the house. I'm not sure if this is totally true, but I heard that shapeshifters cannot go into homes without being invited. By the time we left the shed, she was gone, and we just assumed that she had went inside, but it was still kind of weird. We then walked back and started off walking, but then we heard a strange, unsettling bark, and it would not stop, so we ran back inside of the shop, and it stopped. I also heard that when shapeshifters are around, they leave a foul stench. In Idaho, there are always a lot of dairy farms, and I'm used to them. They smell, but recently I have been smelling the most god-awful stenches, and I just assumed it was the dairy farm, even though I have never smelled dairy farms like that. So I am unsure if it could have been a shapeshifter or not. I believe it was. To mention the setup of the shop, it is a fairly large building that has lights, and a bunch of outlets for various tools and TV. We had the TV on and the lights take a few seconds to fully turn on. When you turn them on, and my cousin and I wanted to see what it would look like with the lights off. So we turned off the 2 switches for the lights, the TV stayed on as intended, and I went to turn the lights back on, but they wouldn't light up a little like they usually do. Then out of nowhere, the TV just turns off completely, like something happened to the switch in the box that made everything turn on and off. No random or extra switches were touched, so it was not from the inside. There is, however, a breaker box that contains switches for inside the shop on the outside wall. I did not want to alarm my cousin more than she already was, so I kept this to myself. I turned on some light music, as to not sit in complete silence and wait to hear something that we did not want to. As music was playing, I kept hearing a heavy thumping and weird noises, but I just turned the music up so that my cousin would not hear them. We ended up making it back inside the house, but this night will go down in my brain as one time I have been truly terrified. Again, not 100% sure if it was a shapeshifter incident, but thought that I could get some feedback on it. Tonight's second part of the upload is another creepy little event out of Idaho. Creepy massive elk graveyard discovered in Idaho. Locals blame Bigfoot. The place was discovered by accident and only thanks to a program that provides some animals with GPS collars to track their movements. When an animal dies, it is soon revealed by the signal from this collar, and in each case a team of rangers goes into the forest to find out how the elk ended his life. This time around, the team went on a similar journey again, but no one knew that they were in for a completely creepy spectacle and a scene worthy of being included in a horror film. According to Northwest Sportsman, the officials stumbled upon a massive pile of remains from what they called an elk boneyard near Lewiston at Craig Mountain. They discovered at least 15 elk head, as well as fur, broken bones, and tons of other bones. With boulders up to the size of beach balls, it appeared that at least 15 elk were traversing the side hilling near the top of the ridgeline, only to be caught up in a landslide, bringing them down almost 1,000 feet over just a distance of 300 to 400 yards. This group of elk was caught in the middle of the rubble and snow, ultimately resulting in death, noted senior wildlife technician Mark Shepard. A whole herd of elk in the winter, for some unknown reason, climbed a rather narrow and steep mountain slope. Not everyone is ready to believe in such a theory. According to local residents, Bigfoot has been seen reportedly in this region. What if they were responsible for the death of the elk? One commentator writes, "I lived near that place and often heard tales of Bigfoot living in the forest. What if it was they who threw the carcass of the elk from the mountain? No matter how it really was, to find it is very strange." So yeah, it's definitely a very creepy picture. I'm not going to post it. If you guys look up elk boneyard in Idaho, you guys will find the link to the article and you guys can see the photo for yourself. It is just a mass amounts of elk, and it doesn't look like a landslide could have caused this. It's very strange looking, and I do see why local residents would see or think a Sasquatch was responsible for it. So, tonight's third experience. Hey everyone, my name's Dave, and this is my experience with the Uvis lake creature. So my dad and I thought it'd be a good time to go catfishing at Uvis Lake, just outside of Gilroy, California. We pull up near the dam and get our things ready. We start walking toward the water when my dad slips on a piece of wood, but gets back up. He's totally fine. We get to our spot that's about 70 yards from where we parked, It didn't take 5 minutes for us to start hearing things in the bushes. My dad and I froze. We kept a lookout for what the cause for the sounds may be. Uvis is prime spot for some shady dealings to go on. The sounds continue for the next hour and a half. It reached the point where all we could think was WTF. I then try and think of what it may be. I rule out that it's a human because no car pulled up except us, and we would have seen them coming from the other direction. Yet we have boar, coyote, deer, bird, and ground squirrel. I'm quick to rule out deer, birds, and squirrels because they're not out at this late at night. It was 11 p.m. This also sounded larger, so coyote is ruled out. Lastly, there is boar. Boar are loud and travel in a large group, so they couldn't be the culprit. We finally arrived back to the car only to learn that my dad had dropped the keys on his fall and that we were not out of the woods yet. We heard some rustling in the brush. The rustling didn't stop, and whatever it was sounded large. My dad tried to call someone to pick us up so we could come back to the car the next day with a set of spare keys. It was at this moment when my dad and I heard footsteps in the brush not 20 feet behind us. I was petrified. I didn't move, nor did I say a word. This moment is burned into my brain. This thing did not move, but I could see the glare out of its eyes, or whatever eye shine. It was like this for the next 10 minutes. I finally waved someone down. They pulled over, and we told them what had happened to us. My dad finally got someone to answer the phone and to come and pick us up. When we did make it back to the car the next day, the car was fine. I just want local people to know, don't go to Uvis Lake at night. Tonight's final encounter. I had an experience in Cannington, Ontario that I believe relates to the topic of Dogman. One night I was driving home heading towards town on the road that I lived on. As I came down a small hill into a slight valley, I saw two animals running on the gravel shoulder of the road. At first glance I assumed them to be a pair of Great Pyrenees farm dogs that had gotten loose, purely based on their size. As I got closer to them from the rear, it became clear from their coloration and body shape that my original assumption was definitely wrong. At the time I was driving a 97 GMC Sierra, and as I became parallel to these animals, both of their heads and the tops of their back were clearly taller than the bottom of the passenger side window. They were both identical from my perspective. However, one of them turned its head to glance over at the truck before turning on a dime and making a break straight through the soy field on the right side of the road. The other followed before I could blink. It wasn't until after they had broken off from my direction of travel that I thought to check my speed. I was going 90 kilometers an hour, and both of them kept pace with ease. When I share this experience, I usually simplify it by saying that I saw two huge wolves on the road. But honestly, I've lived in that town with a population of wolves as well as a wolf sanctuary, even seen one on my street one evening. The animals that I saw that night on the road in Cannington would have towered over any wolf I've seen anywhere else in Ontario. We'd been driving down a lonely, empty side road without streetlights in eastern Quebec in 2005. It was 8 p.m. or so, and we drove in the pouring rain. The entire time there was only one other car roughly 50 feet in front of us. During the whole ride, it seemed. I'd been sitting in the middle back seat when the car in front suddenly hit the brakes, causing his bright red brake lights to shine, grabbing all of our attention. I'd expected to see a downed tree or a dead deer in the road, but no. The car in front swerved to the right, causing us to swerve left. In the headlights stood a huge werewolf dogman, or whatever name you choose to call such a thing. I had a great view from the front. then a close-up as it passed us on the right side of the car. I'll never forget the size of this thing. Just so massive in size and oddly looked totally jacked. It had to somewhat bend over to look into the car, it being such a huge size and all. It couldn't have been anything else. It was the most insane thing I have ever witnessed. I will never forget what this creature looked like. It had very dark fur with pointed ears like a German shepherd. I did not see a tail. Its chest was ridiculously large. I had seen a Dogman. It was in Louisiana, just outside of a small village named Duberly. I was 17 years old and part of a hunting party. I was about 30 meters away from a fence line that housed a herd of teamed and farm-bred deer. I was sitting next to the salt tree stump, waiting for my grandfather to come back with discards from the previous deer we had hunted. Not all of the farmed deer, but a wild deer he had previously shot. I was on the high line known as the Boneyard. It's where we always discarded animal entrails that are of little use to us. I saw a creature's leg, then a shoulder that had a snout of a dog. It was 7 feet tall. It made zero noise, and it noticed me. Its eyes met with mine. It then darted away. This thing looked straight into my eyes. It looked like it knew I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. It backed up and disappeared into the foliage. It was the weirdest thing I had ever seen. Never knew about these things or thought they existed. I still remember the sun shimmering on its smooth pelt. You could see some muscles through the thinner spots of its fur.
Alright guys, just a quick bonus. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you all for your support and kindness. May the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down the path that we call life.